Thank you very much to everybody in Port Elizabeth. I'm sorry I'm not with you all, but for many reasons, and one in particular, we need to be very, very careful in these days. I can't help sometimes feeling that I am left with a last session and having heard all the fantastic things that have been said by the previous speakers. There is no doubt that the way in which we operate and the way in which we work has changed significantly over the last while. And I'm often reminded by the following words. My opaque crystal ball is not showing me much at this time. It's very difficult for any of us to, with any degree of accuracy, determine where we're going in the next while. But as we've seen before, we need to stick to our disciplines, we need to stick to our principles and make sure that we do the right things for the right reasons. Next slide, please. In my run-up to talking about the IWTO, I just thought about a few background little pieces which are interesting in their quantum. The Changing Markets Foundation has done some research and found that clothing production in the last 20 years has doubled. An average European citizen now consumes 26 kilograms of textiles per year, with at least 11 kilograms of those being discarded in that same year. We are around the world making an incredible mess, and this is primarily from petroleum-based fibers. Next slide, please. I think you've gone one too many. No, sorry. The recent inauguration of Joe Biden as president of the USA was quite prominent in that the death of his son, Beau Biden, was highlighted a number of times. Beau Biden was deployed by the Delaware National Guard, and at the various military sites around Afghanistan and Iraq, the US military burns in the region of 140 tons of waste per day in open pits. And it is suspected that these chemicals which are added to fabrics, these petroleum-based fabrics, to make them flame retardant, potentially contributed to the cause of cancer. Next slide, please. An interesting thing here is that we have a fiber that we work with, which offers these properties naturally. Next slide, please. Our fiber offers all the good properties that anybody wants around the world. Mother Nature created the ultimate technical textile, and the complex structure of wool fiber offers many benefits to consumers searching for more sustainable alternatives to build back better after COVID. Next slide, please. We heard mention of the working groups at the IWTO, which I've said on many occasions is the engine room of the IWTO, where all the fantastic information is proved through scientific and technical methods and is then prepared for the rest of the world to use. Our fiber offers these properties and these benefits naturally. Next slide, please. If we talk about a changing environment, this is most probably one of the most profound changes in our time. Social media. We all realize that social media is such that anything you say or do will be known to millions in the blink of an eye. And there are many, many instances where good and bad information has been passed on very, very quickly. The irresponsible attitude towards our planet has been placed under the spotlight. Consumers in the world are well aware and informed and demand fair, reasonable, and sustainable practices and actions. The social media, modern communications, and instant availability of information will ensure that questionable practices are exposed and people will be held accountable. I firmly believe this is one of the changes that's going to happen, is that where actions are performed which are contrary to all the good practices and principles that the consumer demands, people will be taken to task for it. We also need to ensure that wool has a voice during the period of the Great Reset, and that our story is part of a growing lineup of initiatives launched around the world. IWTO members are playing an active part in various global projects launched already, and we will investigate more ways of being part of the solutions in the future. This will demand extraordinary teamwork and individual effort from us all like never before. Next slide, please. Wool remains a comparatively small part of global textile consumption. But I would just like to highlight a few comments by the CEO of Johnson's of Elgin at the recent IWTO Congress. He said something which really illustrates the profoundness of the changes we've had in the last while. And he said there's been 20 years of change in 1 year. And those changes have particularly been as far as online sales are concerned. And we've all experienced it where you buy whatever you need online and it's delivered to your doorstep. You do not need to go anywhere after that. The question is just at what level will the balance settle going forward? The second one is his comment, the market moved east. Now we've heard this from previous speakers that the market in the east has become extremely important. He also mentioned bargains, and yeah, particularly was talking about items which are presented on sale because the environment just demanded radical actions. Physical retail has changed, he said. Every day is Casual Friday. And we've seen this trend over the last while, that particularly as far as formal wear is concerned, there has been a definite shift. And we've heard from previous speakers that there has been a move towards knitwear, which does offer a more comfortable and a more casual approach. And we heard from Giovanni that the South African Wool Club presents itself well in the knitwear segment. Another thing that he said was sustainability has become everything. Now, we heard from previous speakers too that sustainability, as far as they were concerned, was going to be one of the key drivers going forward. Next slide, please. To me, this is a wonderful payoff line. I turn grass into wool. What is your superpower? At the IWTO, and it's been alluded to before, is that there are a number of South Africans which are intimately involved at the IWTO, and it is heartening for me to see the level of cooperation between our South African colleagues and people all around the world. And Giovanni referred to the initiatives around SAC, and where there's some real cooperation between a number of industries where joint resources, joint effort is just going to produce a much better payoff. I guess it's easy for me to say at this point of time that I believe the IWTO in the world wool industry environment is very well positioned to take our industry beyond COVID and the economic realities of that. The IWTO is sound. The engine room of the IWTO remains the working groups, where we have a high level of cooperation and high level of involvement by all the producing countries around the world. Never before have people worked as well together as we do at the moment. We have a small and very competent team in Brussels, and I will, at the risk of reaction, single out Darina White as the Secretary General, and the level of cooperation, the level of understanding, the level of energy that she is able to get out of that small team in Brussels is what is, in my humble view, wonderful. Now, there is another hot button which I unfortunately need to harp on. The success of the IWTO is dependent on the participation, the involvement, and the contributions by the members and any other organizations involved in the wool industry. I read in the last while, and I will just say it again here, retail brands such as Adidas, Nike spend between 3 and 4 billion US dollars a year marketing their products. The wool industry spends a fraction of that. In the process going forward, I really believe we need some really bold and ingenious leaders and decision making. Because if we don't relook at the way we send our great message and the way we market and remain a player in the world textile industry, it's not going to be easy. But I fundamentally believe that the willingness and the wherewithal is there, and it is going to be incumbent of all the member countries and the various industry role players to work with the IWTO and to take the process forward. Thank you for the opportunity. Congratulations to your new office bearers. I'm emphasizing bold and ingenious leadership going forward, because that's the way we'll all get through this. Thank you very much, and good luck with the rest of your Congress.